Well, welcome both of you. I'm so excited to be able to model you guys. It's very
fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. You both done voices for both Jasmine and for Belle. Can you just give a little bit of a history for those that have maybe not known you, or if you want to just give a little quick background?
Okay. Well, I am the voice of Princess Jasmine, and I did the original movie and the sequels and the 100-episode cartoon series and every toy and game and live stage show that featured Princess Jasmine. So, that's me.
And I was both the acting and singing voice for Belle for the movie, and for many, many years after that, for again, all the toys, the sequels, and it's thrilling to be here. You guys have been fantastic.
I just want to say it's an honor to be able to do this, so thank you again.
Thank you.
I'm really excited. I enjoyed watching so many of the Disney movies. I grew up watching that. I know probably a lot of us have. How were you able to get into those roles? What was the first step? I mean, obviously auditioning, but did you have any previous work beforehand that led up to those instances?
Well, with me, I was lucky that I was a working Broadway actress, and they were looking for Broadway performers for this film. As you know, Howard Ashman and Alan Menken were the composer and their assistant. They saw it as a Broadway musical on film. So I was very lucky that I was one of the working Broadway actresses in New York of 500 that auditioned. And I found out after I was cast that Howard Ashman was a huge fan of my Showboat recording that I had done with EMI Records. And he had it at home and would listen to it a lot. So but I did go through 5 auditions, and I found out in the same week that my husband proposed to me. My birthday was the next day. The third day, I got Belle. Quite a week, huh?
What happened at once? I don't know how to handle this.
Well, my husband was like, I was so confident with this part, and I'm normally not real confident with auditioning. I'm usually really insecure about it. But from the moment I read the script, she was me. So there was just a certain kind of toughness that I had with going in and confidence.
That's awesome.
And I wish I could do that for every audition.
That was meant to be.
Oh, it was.
For me, it was also a similar process auditioning for it. It was at least 5 auditions. We would go in, and then maybe a month later, they'd call and say, call back, and I'd go in again, and there'd be less girls, and and the final audition, it was just me. I was like, wait, this is not yet. But we had a long session that they animated to, and that's how the process went.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, I asked them all to...
Oh, fantastic. A whole new world. I said a whole new world.
Of course. I actually got to sing that with Peebo Bryson. Oh my gosh. You guys love Peebo, right?
Yes, Peebo!
We did a show at the Hollywood Bowl, and Lea Salonga was on it, the King and I. Richard White was the king, who was the voice of Gaston. Peebo and Lea Salonga. And I was the fill-in for Julie Andrews, of all places. She got sick, and I learned the part in 3 days. Crazy. I love All the World. And for my sake, I can't pick a favorite song. I am partial to Beauty and the Beast. And it was the last ballad that Howard wrote before he passed away. So I'm very partial to that. So that's my favorite.
You're welcome.
Yes, little girl right over here. Oh, yeah. What are your favorite parts of the movie?
Hi again. I remember you from earlier. I love her t-shirt too. My favorite part of the movie was the magic carpet ride. I just loved that. I loved before the magic carpet ride, the whole magic carpet ride, and then after, when I get to say it's all so magical.
You sound just like her sound like Belle if I really try. All right? So we give it a holler?
Yeah.
Close your eyes. Gaston, you're positively primeval.
Stepped out of the room and she walked in.
It's more natural for her. I guess my favorite part of Beauty and the Beast, I'm partial to the snow scene when they're having the snow fight and something there. And that's the moment that Howard Ashman and our directors and Alan all decided she has to fall in love with them during that sequence. And for me, the moment was, she doesn't realize it, but except that second, when the little bird jumps on his hands when he tries, and she looks at him and she turns away, and I think that's the moment she falls in love with the beast.
Yes, right over here.
Hi, my name's Jordan. So I actually played Belle in a professional show.
Awesome.
So I did a meet and greet after the show, and how is it like when people meet you and they realize that you're not actually Belle, you're just the voice of Belle? Have you met like one of the people at Disney World, one of the characters, and how was it experience?
Oh, I've met a whole bunch of them over the years, and it's really, really fun. What's really strange has been, as I've been in my 50s now, and I go to different events, and when I meet little tiny kids, I mean, people like you all know the difference between the actress and the drawing. But when you're with like 3- and 4-year-olds, and I walk in, and one little girl was in London, and she was 3 years old, she said, "Belle, you forgot your ball gown." Oh my gosh, at least she like thought I was Belle, her grandmother. And then I realized too, my husband's like, "Calm down." I plopped down in the middle of the floor with all these little kids from England, and they were all like 3 and 4, and I opened up the book and I started to read Beauty and the Beast, and it was just like, there was no time. I was like 30 years younger. It was so amazing. Kids are so smart, but it is very different. It is very different, and I love that. It's a challenge. Even today, I had Belle with me in her background, and a couple of little kids kept looking at her, and then they got totally confused. At one point, I just stood behind her and went, "Well, sure, it's Belle."
That's awesome.
Okay, whatever works.
Awesome. You ready?
I have two actually. First one was, who was the for both of you? Who was the person that you could like relate to most in talking to? What you made good friendship?
Do you mean in the movie?
Yes, in the movie.
Who would you relate to most?
Well, I mean, like, who was the person that you would talk to like the most, or who would you confide in?
During the process of
Yes,
making this
during the
film?
process.
Oh, okay, great question. Well, for me, Ron Clements and John Musker, who were the directors of the film, were the dearest people. I trusted them so much. When things got kind of tense, they were really supportive and just good people, proven track record. They had, had huge successes, so I felt very safe with them and very supported by them.
Oh, for me, it was a full effort. It was fantastic. I mean, Gary, our directors, Gary, and Kirk, but Howard Ashman was really also a third director with us. He was still healthy for most of the filming of Beauty and the Beast. And so he was a very strong influence on the way it went. But in fact, I was saying the other day, I don't know if you guys came back today, but I said yesterday, I was telling the story that they would throw away months of work, and they'd take a look at it and say, "This isn't good enough, and we don't like it." And they threw away 6 months of work with the Be Our Guest number that was originally, they had it animated to Maurice. And they said, "This isn't right, it has to be Belle." And that was Howard Ashman pushing that. And of course it cost incredible, I can't even tell you how much money that cost the studio. But ultimately they wanted to make it right. And but I think those three, and of course I'm very partial to Don Hahn. I mean, you all know Don, right? He was the producer of Beauty and the Beast, and he recently produced Maleficent. And Linda, who wrote Beauty and the Beast, wrote Maleficent. So I actually got to talk to him recently, and he's going to be the executive producer of Beauty and the Beast live action that's coming up.
I remember Don too, and I always thought it was funny that the 3 guys behind the glass were Ron, John, and Don. That's so Disney.
That's funny.
getting into voice acting? Is there like any one path, or are there multiple routes to take?
Well, I think we had this question yesterday. It's a really good question. It's an unusual field, and also it's voice work and acting are kind of two separate things. So acting is acting, and some of us are fortunate enough to get to do it for animation. Some certain voice work, like people who do announcer work, just do that, but for the most part, it's actors who you hear doing voice work. So
particularly in films when it's a character.
yes, definitely, definitely. So I think like for somebody to break into it, what you guys have that we didn't have when we broke into it is access. You have the internet. You can post something. You can do like animate something, draw something, put your voice to it,
Have as many takes as you want till it's right.
and you know, you respond. There are ways to put your work out there.
Okay.
It also won't cost as much if you throw out 6 months of work.
Exactly. But you know, people don't realize too, Beauty and the Beast was the last film that took like 4 years. Aladdin was darn close to make. Yeah, it was 4 years to make with all the hand drawing, and I was on the project for 2.5.
So did you ever get to see while you were recording? Did you ever get to see the actual drawings or anything, or kind of the
Oh
layout of the
yes,
scene?
they included us totally with that. In fact, when I first met, saw the head animators for Belle, it was James Baxter and Mark Kent, and they had this huge wall of all these famous women, and there was like Elizabeth Taylor and Natalie Wood and all these people, and then my funny picture at the bottom. And actually, the first day I saw it, I went, oh my gosh, that doesn't seem to quite fit my funny face with these women. And they said, you know what, the drawing that they had of her initially was like Angelina Jolie perfection. She was too perfect. And he said, you know what, I don't think little girls are going to relate to that. I think we need to make Belle a little quirky. So my funny picture got included in it. And they changed her up a little bit, which I think is great. Turned out to be a good thing.
I love that. Hi.
Oh, I remember her.
Oh, no, you're
Oh.
She wants to know what your favorite movie is.
The first movie I ever saw was The Sound of Music, so I think that's probably still one of my favorites.
Mary Poppins. When I was a little girl, I could be so upset about anything or depressed, and I just saw Mary Poppins and the bad mood would go away.
Did you like the recent movie that came out? I can't remember the title.
Saving Mr. Banks.
I loved it.
Really good.
Amazing acting in that film. It's fantastic.
I heard that they had to take, originally they wanted to include cigarettes for Walt Disney because he smoked a lot, but they didn't put that in because they would have to upgrade it or something like that.
They did put it in.
They did put it in?
They did put it
Oh.
in, yeah. Because that was such a part of him. He's a chain smoker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But you know what, there was an article that came out this week, my girlfriend texted me, I didn't even know about it, that in the future, Mr. Iger has said this week, they're not going to have anybody smoke in any of their films now. So, yeah, that was a big deal. I think a lot of ruckus was caused about that with Mr. Banks speaking.
Yeah, because I know that they were saying that they were having to at least show like a trail of it or something. They couldn't actually have him doing it on the screen or something to that effect. Is he doing it on screen? I don't know. Maybe they
It's him putting out the cigarette.
That's what it is.
You're right.
You catch him like
You're right.
walking in on him as he's smoking, and he puts it out really quick. And he's like, normally I
You
don't.
never see him actually.
You don't see him
smoking, right?
putting it to his lips, but you
Yeah.
see him putting it out, and he's like, normally I don't do this in front.
That's true.
I loved the film, so.
Yeah, I love that film too. Oh my gosh. I just did a benefit last weekend with their, this woman is on a mission to raise money to refurbish Walt's childhood home. And she raised a bunch of money with me last week, and I think this is so cool. I guess it means, a certain amount of money has been trashed or anything, but wouldn't that be cool to see Disney hulking and grew up in? I mean, I just love it. Great.
Hi. I was just wondering what it was like being in a major Disney film.
Awesome.
It was really great.
Oh yeah. We feel very blessed.
We do. It's really cool, especially the first time you see it. You're like, you can't believe, it's like seeing a movie that you weren't a part of and you know you are a part of it, and it's just such a surreal experience. It's great.
We're very blessed.
Friend's asking, but she wants to know if, Paige, if you've seen the Belle and Cinderella rap battle. It's a YouTube video. You've seen it?
I've seen it.
Yes, you have to watch it. Belle and Cinderella.
It's so funny.
It was funny. Oh, I have to admit.
You'll have to watch it.
I've seen it. I loved it.
Okay.
I love it.
How many, there's a ton of parodies of all
Beauty and the Beast.
Is there any that you've, like, other than just the rap one we discussed, is there any that stick out to you that you've enjoyed or like, oh, I don't ever want to do that again?
There have been some I don't ever want to see again. I get them all. Everybody, whenever they see one, you know, the Disney princesses, whatever version. I can only think of the ones I hate right now.
Maybe when I see the one, the Gaston, that was the character in the park at Disney World.
Yeah,
that little girl confronted him for like 15 minutes. Was that a riot? This little girl just, and he stayed in character the whole time. My husband and I just couldn't believe that. Fantastic.
Yeah, I looked down in Orlando, I met him, he's hysterical, he's always in character, like, you can't break him, it's very hard to break his character, he's so into it.
I think he needs to get into film.
100%. Yes, sir.
Hi. So my question that I initially had was already asked, so I'm going to ask a similar version to it. What is the advice personally that you would give someone trying to get into your field? Not the process, but just the advice that you're trying to get into.
We talked a little bit earlier, and like, I think the most important thing you can do is follow your passion. So if this is really what you love, learn everything you can about it, do it as often as you can, and just follow where your heart goes. And if you have opportunities that come along, you'll be ready for them. So that's the best advice I can give you.
That's true. We were saying yesterday, Angela Lansbury told a bunch of us when we were young that keep working. Whether it's community theater, keep studying, keep working, take the job, stretch, learn the parts, but also always know your homework, always be prepared. And I agree with her, if it's in your heart. My parents thought I was out of my mind. I studied acting since I was 6. I was the only actress and singer in my family. And I moved to New York at 17, and they would say, no, you're not, you're going to college. And I said, I probably shouldn't say this, every parent's going to get mad at me, but I was just one of those people that, at that time, and maybe different now, it is different now, times, but this is in the late 70s, I said, I'm on the plane to New York. I love you, Mom. Bye. You know,
Bye.
It was just something, but I was ready. I studied my whole life. I had done several roles of summer stock already. So I just think just follow whatever you can do. You can cast in whatever you can do. If you're a singer, sing along with the best singers where you practice great technique. If you can't afford voice lessons, that kind of thing.